Today's episode is brought to you with the support of the Brain Collective in Harrogate. They're a brilliant team who specialise in helping people understand how their brains are functioning and how to optimise mental well-being. They work with everything from focus and sleep to stress and resilience, using gentle, non-invasive techniques like neurofeedback and brain mapping. What I love about it is that it's not about labels or diagnosis, it's about understanding your brain and what it needs to thrive. I've had the pleasure of speaking with people who've worked with them, and the feedback is always the same. They say they're supportive, empowering and eye-opening. So a big thank you to the Brain Collective for sponsoring this episode, and you can find out more about their work at thebraincollective.co.uk. We're back for part 2 in our 3-part series with Emma Jones Phillips. She's the founder of the School of Naturopathic Nutrition. This is such a fascinating conversation. It's all about naturopathy, which allows natural methods to bring about healing. So Emma looks at the whole individual, and it's a really bespoke treatment, really, looking at using Celtic wisdom, the Chinese 5-element system. It takes in consideration lifestyle, environment, physical health. So it's very individual and it's so interesting, and I can't wait to get back into this conversation of it's a multi-dimensional approach to health, and I'm learning lots. So let's get into it.
So it's all about seasonal eating. It's all about living in harmony with nature and actually finding, if we had a food shortage, we would find everything that we needed on the land. And it's that faith in nature that we can actually find what we need if we were to take a dive into foraging and the wild food world. The Celtic wisdom is things probably that you remember your grandmother said, or your community, that's been passed through the lineage of the family.
I love that. I love the idea of nettle soup. I'd love to get a recipe for that, actually. Have you got a recipe for that?
Absolutely, yeah. I can send you one. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
It works really well. Yeah.
And that's a lovely memory, actually. I'm second generation Irish, so my auntie in particular was a fabulous cook. I mean, she was a head chef.
Wow.
So it was really unusual for a woman to have such a... But apparently dignitaries went to this hotel and celebrities. It was,
Wow.
if not the top hotel in Ireland. And we used to go and visit, when we were on holiday over there, and the table was just full of fabulous food. I can remember as a young child, really. And soda bread. Oh my goodness. That kind of stuff. So, I mean, that wasn't particularly healthy because there'd be a big knob of butter on it, and that kind of thing. But you draw from those ancient Celtic healing traditions, which sounds brilliant. I mean, it makes so much sense, doesn't it? That what we get from nature is going to suit us. It's going to help us. So what are some of the other powerful principles then from Celtic medicine that people today can benefit from?
Yes, absolutely. So starting with what I described as the 7 stages of treatment. So working with, first of all, water. So the cleanest water you can find. So some people have their own spring, if they're lucky. But if we don't have a spring, we are then in our own home, remembering really that we need to sort of mimic that in some way. So one experience might be, filter your water, but you can actually vortex it, which is mimicking the spring effect. And there are vortexes you can buy, but a simple way is actually stirring your water with a spoon, which creates that vortex effect in the water. So we're coming back to really, okay, what would nature have provided us, and how can we actually get as close to that as possible? So having daily habits of what I call energized water, so spring water or filtered and vortexed is his first stage of treatment. And then thinking about, okay, how can I bring in wild food or homegrown food as a daily habit? So that might be simply growing your parsley in the kitchen. It might be, having some herbs or flowers that you can add to salads in the garden that are grown without chemicals. And if you're on a walk, notice what you're attracted to. And obviously you can check through apps like Google Lens what the plant is, as well as there's many foraging books now and people who actually share on the subject. One of them who works with me, she's like a master forager. She basically lives off the land all of the time and never buys food from the supermarket. So it is possible. And so we're all aspiring for that. But I think those daily habits, how you can integrate things today, is to notice which plants you're attracted to, what's growing around you in your locality. If you don't have a garden, have a herb garden indoors and make a start with starting to grow your own. And that's a great inroad into Celtic wisdom, because it actually is very inspiring. You feel different when you grow your own fruits or vegetables or herbs or even sprouted food. Wheatgrass, for example, some people might do, and that's a really good. In Ayurveda, wheatgrass, it has the highest amount of nutrients above any other plant on the planet, right? So wheatgrass shot a day might be someone's inroad in. So simple methods really, and coming back to as natural as possible, nature cure.
Yeah. And we're talking about, because I know from my experience, I'm learning even more now, because, my produce is usually from the supermarket. But I've just connected with a local lady actually who's coming on the podcast as well. But she's got a garden kitchen locally, and so I'm excited to connect with her. But over the past 3 years, I haven't had as much as a cold. I got this year, and I was really annoyed about it. I got a slight hint of a cold, and I thought, oh no, it's going to break my run of no colds. But I kind of just really doubled down, and with what I was eating, and it never really developed. A couple of days, and it was gone. I didn't get the sore throat and the whole thing. So we're really talking about, life-changing stuff here, because in your case, from chronic fatigue syndrome, which is debilitating, and I've heard it through my journey and the research that I've done, that this is a protector against chronic illness, and long-term illness. It's the science behind it is compelling. So just to mention that, really, the magnitude of what you're talking about here, really. So we're going to be talking about, how to incorporate more of this stuff, and simplifying it as well. So what about astrology? Astrology can play a role, can't it, in someone's physical or emotional well-being? What do you want our listeners to hear about that? Well, and me, because I'm interested in that.
It's a fascinating idea that, the medical astrology, how our chart governs really who we are physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So the biggest thing we pick out astrologically from someone's birth chart is where the moon lands in their chart and which sign that is and which part of the body that governs. So I'll use myself as an example. My moon is in Taurus when I was born, and that governs the throat. So within my history, because I was living out of harmony and I didn't have the tools at the time to heal myself when I was ill, I had thyroid issues, I had glandular fever, I had everything to do with the throat. So it's the weak spot and it's the strength when you balance yourself. So now I share it, my talks in my naturopathic college. I'm speaking and sharing truth all of the time. And that really is a strength, because once I balance that turned out to be one of my biggest strong points, really, to be able to share with the world. So that's one example. Another example would be to keep a diary, really, of how you feel around the full moon in comparison to the new moon. So within the natural rhythm of nature, we have a waxing and full moon phase and an absorption phase. So as we build towards the full moon in nature, our bodies are actually absorbing more nutrients during that phase. And really the science behind that is because our water content is going up and the mineral content is going up. For example, magnesium being a major electrolyte. So in the way that the tides are affected, our body is made up of water and we are then affected with this rhythm. So we can see through, again, research is all backed up in research that during the full moon phase, our body takes in more nutrients and is able to absorb more during that time. But it also means we could absorb the not so healthy things as well. So drinking alcohol on a full moon, for example, may give someone a headache in comparison to any other time of the month. And we also have a waning to new moon phase. So the new moon phase is the cleansing phase. So whenever people take on detoxes, or they might feel like they want to do a fast, ease up on some of the things they may want to give up in their diet, it's easier to do that during the lunar phase where we move towards the new moon. So we've just had the new moon now in the UK, and this is really a time for cleansing and starting afresh. So we can really build into, again, I would say start with a journal. How do you feel at different phases of the moon cycles? How do you feel seasonally? You notice that there's a deficit at certain seasons where you don't feel at your best or a positive. That will tell you about certain systems in the body and whether that system is strong or weaker. So we're in the season of spring at the moment in the UK, which is wood element in the Chinese system, and that governs the liver. So the work that people do with me and their focus between March 21st and June 21st is the liver season. So you're working on the liver detoxification. And what's interesting is nature provides us the plants that support the liver during these times. So nature's with us, during these seasonal influences. And so one of the questions I might ask someone would be, what's your best time of year? Which seasons do you like? Which seasons don't you like? And what's the best time of the month for you? And we may note it date-wise and then correlate it with the lunar rhythm. So some people notice they feel more energized around the new moon, and others may notice they're more depleted, and it will be your own natural biorhythm. And so we can bring it right back to simplicity, first of all. Keep your daily journal. Notice if there's any peaks or lows at certain times of the month, and you'll start to see a pattern. And that pattern then is quite revealing around what you might need to do for yourself around these cycles. And full moon cycle, for example, the body's absorbing more magnesium. There may be a need to increase magnesium around that time. And one of the classic naturopathic techniques is Epsom salt baths, magnesium salt baths. So they're really relaxing, great for if you've been exercising or if you feel intense. And magnesium in the bath is very powerful to absorb magnesium, but also very relaxing.
Just a quick pause in the episode to let you know about something special. If you're enjoying these conversations, you'll love what's waiting for you over on the brand new Member Vaults page. You'll find free downloads, bonus podcast episodes, and a chance to explore my VIP club. A supportive space packed with exclusive resources. We'll have monthly Zoom sessions or online video sessions, and a private podcast feed just for members. So head over to angelineht.co.uk to dive in. So that's angelineht.co.uk. Everything's in one place, and it's all made with you in mind. Okay, now back to the episode. That makes so much sense. Is that why then sometimes we feel more motivated than others? I love spring and summer. Cancer, my June birthday, so I love spring and summer. That makes so much sense that we sometimes feel more energized, we sometimes sleep better, and sometimes think, I'm not sure, I didn't sleep that good last night, but I'm not sure why, or the opposite, And so, yeah, that makes so much sense that sometimes when we're trying to think about how we're feeling, we think, I don't know. I just really don't know what's going on, but I'm not sleeping that good at the minute or whatever it might be. So working in rhythm with your body makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, plan ahead. If you had a particular big event and you knew that you'd in your biorhythm you weren't at your best, or you were at your best, you can plan ahead as well with knowing your own medical astrology and understanding that we're not set as one pace all of the time. And that's, I think, the biggest risk, really, that people think they have to be, I'm great, I'm okay all of the time. We have this natural rhythm, which is totally normal. Yeah.
And what I like about that is that we can be easier on ourselves, that when we're not performing every day, that maybe we haven't had as much of a productive day, or whatever it might be, we were more irritable, or whatever it might be, we can be a bit easier on ourselves and say, well, okay, maybe I just need to rest a little bit, or whatever, tuning into what we really need, I guess, really. So who is this for? Is this for everyone, or does it benefit a certain age group or a certain gender, or is it relevant to everyone?
Yeah, it's absolutely relevant to everyone. Everyone can see a difference with us taking on small or large aspects of the methods that are involved with naturopathy. So it is really coming back to, as I said, what you already know that's been passed through the ancestors or lost along the way, but also simple methods that the body and the mind and the emotional health needs in order to actually bring us into daily balance. So the 7 stages of treatment are an aspect of the work which is powerful, because it allows you to sort of look at the 7 stages and say, okay, what am I doing out of these 7 stages today that can make a difference? So the first stage is water, hydration, getting good quality, high quality water, the best you can find, and having at least 2 liters a day. And then really taking a look at what is influencing you from a dehydration point of view. It could be stress. And so working on reducing stress and increasing what I call the oxytocin love hormone. So the more we're in a state of peace and love, then the more the body will heal. And stage 2 is to take a look at your diet. And if I usually say take 2 or 3 things out, that will have a knock-on effect on detox. So there may be certain habits that aren't making a positive difference here, such as white sugar, caffeine, processed gluten, in the body. And so there'll be 3 top foods to take out, but there'll be an array of things you can bring in, which will be really exciting. Lots of new ways of eating, new recipes, seeing things from a slightly different angle in the way that you shared, Angeline, around the eating locally, homegrown food. That's huge in terms of making the body more vital. So stage 2 is look at food as a medicine. Food as a medicine is a very big subject, but we start with it actually, okay, the 3 things I want to give up, and actually what can I bring in now that's going to really make me feel excited and wanting to take on more of this work. Because as we start to feel more energized, it feels quite contagious. You want to do explore more and more, and it's a bit like opening this amazing treasure chest. You can see that there's so much you could do, and we're so overloaded with information these days. I think it comes back to, what does the heart want? What do you feel is exciting for you, that's motivational to bring in? So stage 3 is to address essential fatty acids. So essential fatty acids is a world of omega-3s and 6s, which many people don't have in the traditional diet. And omega-3 is so important for hormone health and brain function. And so when you mentioned butter earlier, I had to stop and not respond, because butter actually in its natural state is a very healthy form of fat. And one of the big myths is that, margarines being better for us. And so we explore in stage 3, okay, how can you bring in things that are close to nature as possible, and take out the things that have been synthetically produced. And one of the biggest problems now in society is processed fats, the wrong fats going in, people thinking they're doing a better job with margarines and what we describe as heated seed oils, the sunflower oils, etc. The big part of healing is actually bringing in the healthy omega-3s again, and that really has a profound effect on the hormone system. And so you can see, if you just take a little bit from each stage, you're then going to really see yourself evolving at a really significant pace. Actually, there's a lot of change that happens with these stages. Just take you, briefly through the other, stage 4 is to address any supplementation you might need to put in that where you've may become chronically deficient. And I'm always recommending liquids or powders that are food ingredients over processed synthetics. Yeah, there's a lot out there in the supplement world now. So we need to be aware that some isn't completely natural. And so the body then has to work so much harder to metabolize them. And actually, do they have an impact? So that's a whole world of choosing the right supplements. And I usually say start with the basics or what your body needs to produce the right hormones. The hormones have an effect on the nervous system. Moving on then, naturopathic techniques. So that sort of ties in with Celtic wisdom and also Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. So using Eastern and Western cleansing methods that will fast track the body's detoxification. So that would be things such as mentioned Epsom salt baths, compresses with castor oil, which is an Ayurvedic technique to the liver to detox. You may do hot and cold showers, hydrotherapy, which is a really big deal these days with, the cold therapy movement, sea swims and that sort of thing. And so what can we encourage as a daily habit to create movement in the body? So that may be, you're looking at saunas, doing some daily exercise, what could actually encourage detoxification. And then emotional health. So when we're looking at the latter part of the stages of treatment, what we talked about at the beginning of this session, really looking at self-love and self-care and being kind to ourselves is a big part of actually the 7 stages. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a minefield really, isn't it? Because, we are told that just fat is bad, full stop, when actually, there are healthy fats, aren't there? And, so were you saying that real butter is okay? Is that what you were saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's a whole myth around saturated fat being that it's not good for us, but it's in its natural state. So coconut oil and grass-fed butter, in its high quality form, and ghee, which is an Ayurvedic principle, an Indian Eastern principle, using butter and clarifying it. They are natural, healthy fats that the body needs to build brain balance. So the myelin sheath that the body has to protect the brain actually needs fat in order to keep that supported. And we need also fats to actually hydrate our bodies. So water alone doesn't do it. We need oil. So going back to natural fats, as well as things like hemp oil, flaxseed, omega-3s. Some people use fish or algae. They're all very relevant to our healing process and absolutely essential. But the minute we go to heating oil above 42 degrees, it becomes like a trans fat then. So the seed oils, such as your sunflower, margarines, and rapeseed oil that's found in a lot of food products these days, they're very congesting for the liver, and they do the reverse on the hormone system. And so there's a lot there that, people may not even realize, but actually simple tweaks in the diet, going back to butter, coming back to, if you're vegan, using coconut oil, and remembering that is how we treat these oils. How if we cook them, the seed oils that I shared, the sunflower seed, etc., we actually cause them to be hydrogenated. So there's an impact then on your cellular health. So pouring your olive oil onto your meal afterwards, you don't have to cook with it. And so having them cold pressed is the answer really, with the seed oils and the olive oil, rather than frying them.
So, and interestingly, yeah, it would have been real butter, going back to my Irish auntie and all the, all my Irish family, it would have been real butter on the table back in the day, when we were kids growing up. So, yeah, they knew a thing or two, didn't they, really? A lot of them did grow their own veg as well. My dad looked after the veg patches when he was a young boy. When my dad came from a rural part of Ireland, and they didn't have a lot at all. In fact, each day they had to think about where they were going to get their food. So Granddad would go out and hunt rabbits. I know that might be controversial today, but that's where they got their food source. And they grew their own vegetables and eggs and sold eggs and traded stuff amongst each other and all that kind of thing, that's the way, that was their lifestyle. Okay, good stuff. So we're talking about simple lifestyle changes. So, just thinking about one thing that people can change maybe today or even this week, and really listening to and getting in tune with our bodies a bit more, because our lifestyles now don't really allow that. And we're not really taught to do that. We're just taught to work hard. I say this all the time on the podcast. We're not taught that our bodies actually need fuel. We need good fuel at that as well. So tell us a bit more about how life changed for you when, with living with chronic fatigue, life, I'm imagining, was quite debilitating. So first of all, tell us a bit about that. And then, if we can go on to what changed for you as well then through this process. And that's the end of part 2 in our 3-part series with Emma Jones Phillips. She's the founder of the School of Naturopathic Nutrition. And this is such a valuable conversation. We're talking about all things natural methods to bring about healing. And this treatment is relevant for infertility, arthritis, stress, Crohn's disease, weight loss, all kinds of different presenting issues. So I can't wait to join you again next week where we continue this great conversation.